What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Talking Ball. It's Jack here with John today, and we're going to be discussing some of the recent free agency signings, and we're both going to be giving you guys our top three worst signings of this early on free agency period here. So John, let's get it started. What's your number three worst signing?
So number three, my worst signing is Bradley Beal re-signing with the Washington Wizards. 5 years, $128 million. A monster deal for a guy who is, at best, a number two option on offense and really just hasn't gotten better since the Wizards had a pretty good playoff run. Going on 2 years now, it seems like already, with John Wall and their Polish power forward center, Marcin Gortat.
Right.
So he really hasn't improved since that playoff run, and Beal he's a guy who in my mind is not worth that much money. He got, $128 million per year. That's like $20 million or more. It's more than $20 million a year.
Right.
Huge money.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this before we started recording, but I just feel like these super, or not superstar level, but the star level guys, it's just so tough for the teams. They're kind of shoehorned, right? Like, someone else was going to pay Bradley Beal this money. Obviously,
Right.
They couldn't give him the 5th year, but they were going to give him 4 years, $100 million.
Yes.
Someone else would have given it to him. And this was a deal that I really wrangled with, honestly, putting onto my list.
Yeah.
Because you're right, he hasn't improved, and a lot of that has to do with injuries. I mean, the most games he played was from that season you're talking about 2 years ago, where he played 73 games. Just looking at this, the next season he played 63. Last season he only played 55. He's a young player with lots of injury concerns already, and you're giving him all this money now. I get it. I understand why it's on the list. At the same time, though, I do feel like the Wizards just had to give him this money. And therefore, if he does manage to stay healthy, I do think this contract will be more than justified. But there's also that chance that, this is only the start of his injury history, and it could just go downhill from here.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying, especially because then the Wizards would have to he would get paid somewhere else, and they would have to bring someone else in, and then you're looking at just a team with John Wall again.
Right.
So you kind of are forced to pay him, but at the same time, I just felt like that's way too much for a player who has not improved and has not shown the ability to stay healthy over the past few seasons. So, Jack, how about you give us your number three worst signing in free agency?
Right, and my spot goes to Timofey Mozgov. 4 years, $64 million is not the most money we've seen, obviously, in this market here. And it's not either, and it's not outrageous. I want to say that initially. But for me, for a guy who's phased out of the Cavs rotation because of his ability to play, not because of matchups, was important for me. And especially since it was so early on in the process. Like, I understand if he was He
was one of the first signings.
Yeah, exactly.
He might have been the first.
And for me, if that's, that just can't be the guy you sign first. The guy who couldn't play for the champion Cavs. And I know he's now playing for a worse team in the Lakers, and he'll get playing time.
Yeah.
But he's also not, he's not a young guy. He's already 30 years old. And for me, the Lakers, I know they had a shit ton of money to spend, but I just felt like they could have spent it on better places, like their actual quality signing, Luol Deng.
Right. Yeah, I do like the Luol Deng signing a lot. But Timothy Mozgov, as a Lakers fan, at first, obviously, I was very upset about it. Because it was like, what are you doing? You're signing this guy for so much money, even with the cap the way it is. And, I knew the Lakers weren't going to get Kevin Durant. That's a certainty. Right. But still, I think he's a decent signing because he is overpaid, but he'll give them a good defensive five there with Julius Randle, who really is not a great defender, so he'll play okay there. He's a decent pick-and-roll player, which will help Clarkson and Russell. Right. So he's okay. Obviously, he was overpaid, but I don't think he'll be a total bust.
Now, my thing, real quick, before we get into your next player here, is that for me, if it would have been a 2-year, $32 million deal, I wouldn't have batted an eye.
Yeah.
It's more the years.
4 years, yeah.
And for a guy who hasn't, proved that he can do it year after year, That's really the issue more for me, and the issue that I had with a lot of contracts. That just came out with the money boon. I understood that players were going to get paid a lot more, that the years were so much. In a lot of these cases, 3 to 4 years. So, John, who is your number 2 player there?
So my number 2 player is Chandler Parsons, going from the Mavericks to the Memphis Grizzlies for 4 years, $98.5 million. This was a guy who has not been healthy with the Mavericks, even worse than Bradley Beal, I would say.
Right.
I believe he only played 20-something games last year. I'm not positive, but something like that number. And then he just got paid $25 million a year, essentially, a little less than that, but $25 million a year. What was the number of games he played?
Last season, he played 61 games,
okay.
actually.
Oh, okay. So what was... Okay,
the thing with Parsons, though, and the reason why the Mavs were so willing to let him go is it wasn't the amount of regular season games that he's missed the past couple seasons.
Right, the playoff games.
The playoff games.
Right.
He was only able to play in one of their 10 playoff games the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And as a team, that I can see how that would really bother me because, and as a fan of that team, that's the time of year you want your guys, to be ready to go no matter what injuries they have, unless obviously, it's a season-ending injury. But you want them playing.
Right.
And if a guy can't show that he's ready to play at crunch time, I understand why they let him go. I do understand, though, why the Grizzlies paid him. I do wonder, though, who they were bidding against, right?
Yeah.
Why he was confident he was going to be a max-level player. I just didn't understand that coming out how his value, improved from his Rockets days.
It didn't.
And
I mean, it shouldn't have.
It shouldn't have, right. And,
it shouldn't have.
But it did.
Yeah.
And, it is questionable. I do understand, why did this guy who, after 2, injury-prone years, he wasn't able to play in the playoffs, he really didn't show much improvement as a player on the court, and his value appreciated. I understand that the market, there's much more dollars in the market, and I understand the upside play also for the Grizzlies, right? They haven't had that, 3-man who can score the ball since, honestly, Rudy Gay.
Right.
And hopefully he'll be, more of an addition to the team than Rudy Gay was. But really, I think the Parsons signing is a real risky signing.
Yeah, especially because it really limits their cap flexibility going forward. They signed Mike Conley to the most rich deal in NBA history, at least until LeBron and KD get their new deals. 5 years, $150 million. I could understand Mike Conley getting that kind of money because he would have gotten that money anywhere. But going and signing Chandler Parsons now, $25 million a year with Mike Conley, it's really going to hurt them going forward if Parsons can't stay healthy. And even Mike Conley has had his own injury issues here and there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Now, my second, worst signing here in the early free agency period is the one that just flashed up on the screen, and that was the Rajon Rondo signing.
Yeah.
Obviously, this doesn't go with my rule here of the years. It was only 2 years, $28 million. Obviously, not outrageous money either. But my problem with this signing is you just traded Derrick Rose, and to me, that meant, we're making this Jimmy Butler's team. We're putting the ball in Jimmy Butler's hand.
Right.
And now you're bringing in a ball-dominant point guard who's
attitude problems.
Has attitude problems, and he's not playing off the ball.
Right.
There's no shot he's playing off the ball.
Absolutely.
So for me, what are you doing if you're the Chicago Bulls? Are you committing to Jimmy Butler as your franchise piece there? Or are you tanking? I don't understand what's going on with the Bulls.
And you're setting up your coach to fail, really, in my mind.
Right.
And he already had a bad rookie year, and now the second year, I don't think it's going to be much better. Like you said, it's really dysfunctional right now for the Chicago Bulls. They went from one of the most promising teams in the league now to what the hell are they doing?
Right.
So now my number one worst signing of free agency was definitely Dwight Howard going to the Atlanta Hawks. 3 years, $70 million. I am not a fan of Dwight Howard. I haven't been since he totally bombed in LA. And he lacks heart. He lacks commitment. He doesn't have a good attitude. Him and James Harden were kind of the the two superstars in Houston, and they said something along the lines of it's us and then everybody else, and then they didn't even get along toward the end of his stay there in Houston, and he was just a total toxic personality, and they couldn't get rid of him soon enough, and then the Hawks jump on him and sign him to a massive 3-year, $70 million deal. Totally don't understand that. He's had injury issues over the past few years now with his back. He's not as dominant as he once was when he was with Orlando. So really, I just don't understand the Dwight Howard sign-in. I know they had to replace Al Horford, who went to the Boston Celtics on a max contract, but I think you could have done better than Dwight Howard, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone from Atlanta as soon as next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Dwight Howard signing, similar to the Chandler Parsons signing, was a team who, similar positions, right? Atlanta and Memphis, where they're kind of stuck being a playoff team, but they can't get past that hurdle.
Right,
and
they're not an NBA Finals quality team.
Yeah, and I think both those teams just took pretty big risks with long-term contracts on guys with clear injury histories.
Yeah.
And they really better both pan out. Otherwise,
that front office is going to be replaced.
Exactly. And opposed from being, I understand the point. You don't want to be, the run-of-the-mill playoff team anymore in the NBA where you just make the first round, you leave.
Yeah.
But both these signings, to me, have the ability to set their teams back and potentially, make them no longer playoff teams.
Yeah.
But for me, my worst signing of the free agency period was a guy with a little less well-known name than the previous 5 guys we've covered, and that was Solomon Hill, signing for 4 years and $52 million to the New Orleans Pelicans. And I get it. I mean, I know that they needed these swingmen on the roster, but the guy averaged 4 points and 3 rebounds last season. He's not a center, okay? He's not 7 feet tall. He's only 6'7", okay? He can't shoot threes. He's, I'd say, an average defender. I just don't understand what part of this guy's game made them say, oh, we have to give him a 4-year, $50 million deal. He only played 15 minutes a game last year. There's just no part of this deal that makes any sense to me.
Yeah, it's a horrible deal. And it's sad to see that Anthony Davis, after so much promise, going into this past year, and they totally tanked. They weren't good at all, really. He was hurt. Alvin Gentry was not a great coach in his first year there. And now this sign-in, you wonder how successful Anthony Davis, who is like a once-in-a-generation type talent, can be there.
Dell Demps has really done a terrific job of making Anthony Davis's life miserable.
Yeah.
Just go back a couple of years to the Drew Holiday trade,
right,
the Tyreek Evans signing, the Eric Gordon re-signing, just terrible. And the Omer Ashik signing in the summer was an awful deal. And until this summer's contracts was, regarded as the worst in the entire league. The Pelicans have really had a tough time of it in the past couple of seasons, making, in my opinion, a lot of terrible decisions, and this is just the latest of them. But all right, guys, let us know what you guys think. Let us know what terrible free agent contracts you guys thought were out there, and if you guys thought our poor contracts were actually good. Let us know in the comments below, and thanks.